Welcome back, Deep Review TV viewers. Chris Nichols here. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of our How to YouTube series. By far the biggest question that Jordan and I get asked is honestly like what kind of camera gear we like. And for the answer to that, watch our channel on deepreview.com. But by far the second biggest question we get asked when making our content is, how do you guys do it? Are you scripting things? Are you reading off a teleprompter? Are you just like making stuff up out of thin air? And so I thought, that's a good topic to talk about. So we've kind of broken it down into 3 rough categories. We're gonna talk about the pros and cons of each. The first thing that I want to talk about is scripting your show, writing something beforehand down and then relaying that basically verbatim to your viewers. This technique actually does have a lot of advantages. If there's facts, points, or in our particular work, a lot of technical specs you want to make sure you don't miss, scripting can be a very effective way to make sure those all get mentioned. Scripting is also very handy because you can basically time out your show before you shoot it. You should have a rough idea by using a script of how long your show is going to be, what you might want to cut ahead of time, what you might want to change in order to keep the flow working naturally. That can also be really good. And the third thing is, a lot of people might find themselves under pressure in front of the camera. Maybe they're just starting out and they might find that a script is more comfortable, something you can read from just so that it's all there for you, take some of that pressure and edge off. A lot of people work better under those conditions. Now, what about some potential cons with scripted work? In the TV business, when I was using scripts, I have to basically memorize my lines much like an actor. And then when you got the camera on you, there's a lot of pressure to be able to bring that back up. And a lot of people might have difficulty with that. So what about the classic cue card situation? They can work, but then you always have this sort of gaze just off camera or glancing back and forth, and that can be jarring and unnatural and pull the viewer out of the experience. Now, a teleprompter can solve that because you're looking right in the camera, but honestly, they're an additional expense and they do require some training to use and to read from naturally. Now, another big con with scripted work is arguably it might sound robotic or stilted. You have to remember that you got to write scripts the way that you would speak conversationally, especially if you want things to sound natural. And if you script things heavily, you might find that you don't have as much opportunity to ad-lib or improvise, which can often be a really interesting part of this whole YouTube experience. Now, if you want to see a couple examples of YouTubers who work with scripts, but through a lot of skill and training are very natural sounding, check out Gerald Undone, his channel, as well as Dave Mays on Indy Mogul. The second approach I would best describe as basically a rough point form outline of all the points, all the facts, whatever it is that you want to convey to your viewers, but without having to go through the work of writing out a full script. This means that you, the presenter on camera, can now take a few facts, convey that to the audience, and although it is harder than it sounds, this is the method Jordan and I like to use because when done properly, it does sound genuine, sincere, and I would even say almost like it's between friends, you and the viewer. One of the other benefits with this is that you can improv on the spot. So if I try a conversation one way and I say, okay, maybe I'm going to try different wording, just move things around, change the order, I can try that and see if it makes more sense or is more natural or more easy to digest, unlike a script where it's more written in stone. Now, there are a few cons to this approach as well. First off, it does ask a lot of you as a presenter to be able to take a few facts and turn that into a conversation. And anybody can do this, but it can take quite a bit of time and practice to get a good handle on it. Another issue, although you don't have to do the work of writing a script, it does put a lot of work on the editor afterwards, who then has to take all of these pieces and put them together in a way that sounds natural and flows properly. And you're gonna make a lot of flubs, and that's just the way it is. Much like on a movie set, you're gonna wanna do take after take after take, and zooms, of course, not of course, I shouldn't say of course, certain range of and that can be frustrating. Now, if you want to see some YouTubers that do a great job of this, well, please watch our videos and subscribe, but also Ted Forbes, Art of Photography, a fantastic person who also is very good at this skill. So if our first approach is a really neat and tidy script, and our second approach is covering a point form outline with some improvisation, then the third approach would really be what I would describe as a totally free form, unscripted stream of consciousness. You might have some notes that you want to cover, but basically you are just going to speak at length to the camera. Now, I think this works really well if the presenter has a strong command over what they want to cover, or they have at least very strong opinions about what they want to talk about to the viewer. Some of the big pros about this is that you really get to get your personality across. But there are some major cons to this approach as well. First off, you might love speaking or listening to yourself for an hour and a half, but unless you're making a podcast, your viewers might want a far more concise video. And in that case, you're gonna have to do a lot of cutting. And because of the way that you're speaking, even out of chronological order, adding things and mixing things up, you are gonna have a lot of work on the editor's plate. And that editor might even be you. It's gonna be a lot of work to cut things, concisely make a video from all those pieces, and find all the parts that you want to remember and put together. Another problem is that when you do edit all this together, it might feel very disjointed, have a lot of jumps and tonal shift from calm to excited, and from one cut to another might be jarring.
This is absolutely one of my favorite camera sensors. So it's a 24 megapixel sensor. Low light quality is phenomenal.
Although I will say, as much as Jordan and I dislike it, that has often become a lot of the style that YouTube videos are doing now, and people are starting to accept that as the norm. This approach can be very effective though for the right presenter. You've probably seen a lot of historical lectures like this. You've seen some political commentaries, a lot of rant videos, and a lot of comedians like to do this too, where it's necessary to be able to freeform in order to make things funny. I hope this helps you decide what you're going to be most comfortable with. Check the link though for other videos in this How to YouTube series. Go to Instagram, go to Twitter, please go to deepyourview.com as well. And remember to subscribe so you'll get the rest of our How to YouTube videos. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.